information
haven't
has been
received
shared,
any.
guys, whatever information has been shared by Dr. Ashok, sir, you can follow that. So that's fine, I guess. If no data has been shared or no assignment has been shared, I remember sir has said that they will upload the assignment soon. In at the end of this
A
month, I
few
guess,
days. No,
in
he
a few
said in a
days.
few days, but however,
Okay.
that didn't happen. So we're still waiting for the assignment.
Okay. We'll get back to it. I'll look into this
Miss,
matter again today itself. Before that,
Miss,
we'll talk about Block 3 MAPC-2 lifespan development. And again, I'm
Miss,
asking you, are there any questions, are there any doubts on any
Miss,
topic from MAPC 1, Block 1, 2, 3, 4, and MAPC 2, Block 1 and 2? Are there
Miss.
any doubts? Yes.
Good morning. Good morning,
Good
colleagues.
morning.
Just before we deal with our doubts with respect to the units that we've covered, I raised this concern last week, and I am going to raise it again with you as our lecturer. I think the fact that the information has not been forthcoming with respect to the expectation of the university on the students' behalf is a little concerning for me. I can't speak for anyone else, but I will share with you, not knowing what is expected of me, the deadline for which I would have to complete it, and the magnitude of it is causing some significant anxiety with me. Because, like I shared last week, I am not a full time student. I'm an employee and I am studying. So I have got to be able to know how I am going to structure my time so as to ensure that my truest potential is maximized and any document that I produce would be an accurate representation of my ability. I'm kindly asking if the university can make available to us the information that needs to be shared. At the top
Sure.
of the list is
Yes,
what
Tamika.
is expected of us with respect to our assignments and the deadlines for same. I do not want to find myself in a position where I can't function or I am in a rush to complete something because it is pounced on me. I don't think that is fair to me as a student.
Yes, I totally understand that. So don't worry, we will finish this block 3 right now, and then we'll again invite Dr. Ashok sir, and then we'll talk about the assignments. Okay, is that fine? Otherwise, it will take a long time. So let's start with block 3 first of all. Okay. I'll invite sir after this lecture. How do we share the screen? Well, I'm not able to share the screen. Okay, so this is block 3 of this MPC-2 lifespan development paper. So as we have seen block 1 and 2 previously, and in block 3 we do have again. So if you remember, they have talked about physical changes and development that has happened from 0 to 6 years and 6 to 11 years. Over here in this unit, you will get to know about physical changes that happens at the different adolescence level: early adolescence, middle adolescence age, and the late adolescence stage. So 12 to 14 years, 14 to 17 years, 17 to 19 years. So this is what has been mentioned in block 1. Again, it's a general description on the physical changes of boys and girls that takes place between the age group of 12 to 19 years. It has been categorized the early adolescence. So the child will hit the puberty, and there are certain physical changes that happens. And the parents, so this has it has also mentioned that the parents has to look after the problems that is caused by the child, in the changes that happens in the child. The parents has to look after that. Support has to be there. Then middle adolescence, again these certain changes are mentioned here. Again, hormonal changes, hormonal, and apart from physical, we also have mental and cognitive development. If you have seen in Piaget's stages, the last stage, the formal operational stage, that changes happens in the child at the cognitive level. So all the sexual changes, cognitive, physical, mental, all it has been mentioned here. And then in the late adulthood, that is from 17 to 19 years, a description has been given what should be the height, weight, an ideal height and weight description has been given. So that one you'll find in this notes. Somebody wanted to get admitted. Okay, so that is in block 1. Then physical development, it also uh, talks about the various sexual maturation, the body size, the changes that happens during this puberty will be take place in the children. Then there are different hormones that are released, and the pituitary gland, especially the pituitary gland. So, new puberty, the pituitary gland increases the secretion of a hormone called follicle stimulating hormone. It is also known as FSH. And then this hormone causes additional effect in girls. This hormones activates the ovaries to start producing estrogen, and in boys it helps to produce or to develop sperm. So all these changes happens, as you can see, they're very simple. Adolescence, male, and all the description has been given of size, of pubic, growth of pubic hair, and various other changes that takes place among girls and boys. So they've talked about this. You can read this again. And then again they have mentioned about the difference. So this is a description of the boys: the penis, the foreskin, the testicles, the erections, ejaculation. All this has been mentioned here. You can give a reading to this. Then what happens in what are the issues that happens. So most changes in boys are external and invisible, like with girls where most changes happen inside the body. So it's the genitals, the wet dreams, the growth spurt, then body odor, pimples, sexual feeling, all this, it's not visible, but still it's there in the boys. Then in adolescence, female, it's quite visible. So the invisible changes that happens is the growth, the below the side of the uterus, they develop the fallopian tube, ovaries, uterus. Then all this stuff has been mentioned, so you can give a reading to this. We'll expect less question on this, but still you can give reading to this definitely. And the visible changes, the growth spurt, the breast hair growth, body odor, pimples, sexual feelings, all these are some uh, physical changes that happens among the adolescents from 12 to 19 years. So all this is in the first unit. So you can read this, and the references for this book are again Nelson Nil, the 1996 Adolescence, a Contemporary View, and Messe, Child and Adolescence Development for Educators. So you can read this for Unit 1. Then coming to Unit 2, that is cognitive changes. Cognitive changes also we have definitely talked about Piaget's theory, but they're talking about how cognitive changes in adolescence they impact. So the last stage, like I mentioned, the formal operational, it is above 11 years according to Piaget's cognitive development theory. So here the child, they have an increased independency for thinking through their problems and situations. An adolescent should be able to understand pure abstractions, and then they have higher maths concept. So mathematical reasoning and logical reasoning, all these they are developed. And the adolescent's egocentrism, it's characterized by imaginary audience with an increased self-conscious. So children at this stage between 12 to 19, they feel that somebody is observing them. The adolescents, they become very conscious when we take them to our parties, or to friends. If there's a family function, they're very conscious about going to such parties and family functions. Then now we also have to understand that how it is different, how cognitive development is different from psychological approaches. So there are two different perspective. So it accepts the use of the scientific method. So there are some scientific evidence that yes, cognitive development does takes place in young children, in adolescence, that is from 12 to 19 years. And then it generally rejects introspection as a valid method of investigation. Anyway, psychology has definitely rejected when different schools of psychology were coming up. The school of introspection, they were not into the concept that they would follow the method of introspection. So various other schools came. That's how you, if you are interested in understanding the history of just a second. 1 second. Okay, sorry guys, I'm still having that bad throat, and it's really difficult for me to get healed of this quickly. Anyways, I'll share the screen. Okay, so they were talking. Yes, I was talking about the history of psychology. You should definitely read how the different schools of psychology came into existence and what they were doing. All this stuff. You can talk about this. So, this is also one of the different cognitive development that takes place. All these ideas has been shared between the uh, adolescence. At the adolescent stage, what kind of cognitive development happens? So definitely the formal logical operation happens, and then it includes abstract thinking, the ability to reason from unknown principle, to form new ideas, to to consider many points and viewpoints of others. So when as a child we will not be able to understand others' viewpoint, but at this particular age we understand others' viewpoint and we're expected to. So all this cognitive development happens. So comparing, we compare and debate ideas and opinions. We also have the development on the ability to think about the process of thinking. Meta thinking or metacognition, if you've heard about this term. So all this can happen. All this starts at the adolescent stage. Right? So that is from 12 years to 19 years. So it has also mentioned about the different complex thinking that happens in the early adolescence. So they begin to demonstrate use of formal logical operation in schoolwork. They begin to question authority and society standards. You can also see it could also you can recall the post-conventional stage from Kohlberg's theory of moral development, if you remember the last stage. So they would question society and they would understand they would question authority and understand societal standards. So they begin to form and verbalize their own thoughts and a variety on and view on a variety of topics, usually related to life, such as which sports are better to play, which groups are better to be to included in, their political views, their personal appearance or desirable or attractive or not, their parental rules should be changed. So that is at the early adolescence. The next is they often question more extensively, they often analyze more extensively. So questioning and analyzing, it's a very extensive thing on in the middle adolescence age group. Then they think about the beginning to form their own code of ethics. What do I think is right? Who am I? So again, if you remember Erickson's identity, the concept of identity crisis. So all this happens at this stage. So at the adolescent stage, we expect our children to be that yeah, they have grown up, but sometimes we don't want them to take certain responsibility which are not under their control or domain. So we sometimes will say you are still young, but sometimes when they are behaving like a young kid, we will say yeah, you have grown up, why are you behaving like a young kid? So identity crisis happens at this age only, if you could remember Erickson's theories of identity crisis. Then well, we know they make plans and they want to think on a long term basis, and they use their systematic thinking in terms of their relationship also. And then the late adolescents, they talk about they want to talk about the global concept. They have their idealistic view on certain topics, and they want to debate and discuss great deal, and also show intolerance to opposing views. Plus, they also begin to focus their thinking on making their career decisions. So they don't want to depend on their parents or their elders to decide their career, but still at the late adolescent stage, they want to decide their own careers and focus on different career options as well. So that's one thing. And the last one, they would want to focus on their thinking, their emerging roles in the society. They would want to understand what society is expecting from them, what kind of expectations are there from society, from their culture. Culture also has a very important role to play from the family members. So like in India, if somebody is if they are in some kind of government job, so it is expected that the child would also focus on government jobs. It's a very common thing, I guess. If the parents is a doctor are doctors, then even the child are expected to do well in their careers. So it's not that we get less time to explore different things, but yes, it is, there are various expectations in our culture, and I guess in many other cultures would be the same. So that's what you see in cognitive development. And then here is a description on Piaget's theoretical approach. We already have discussed this in detail, the approaches. Here is an overview on what happens at the in Piaget's theory of cognitive development, and what are the different stages: the sensory motor stage, pre-operational stage, concrete operant, formal operational. We have already seen this. And they're in this unit they have focused more on the adolescent stage, the early middle and the late adolescence, and then the concept of formal operational and how adolescents are characterized in this situation. And they've talked about 5 abilities in this age. So during adolescence, individuals become better able than children to think about what is possible instead of limiting their thoughts to what is real. Whereas children's thinking is oriented to the here and now. That is to think and events they can observe directly. Adolescents are able to consider what they observe against a backdrop of what is possible. They can think hypothetically. Then they now the second thing is that they want to become individuals who can have abstract ideas and who can think, higher order thinking. As a kid, we need to have small level of thinking, or maybe small things, like metaphors, nouns, pronouns, all these things, logical thinking is expected at this age. Then metacognition, I talked about metacognition. So introspecting one's thought, why are we feeling in this way? All this, understanding our emotions, understanding others' emotions, and getting rid of egocentrism. So all this happens at this age. That's what they're expecting. And then our adolescents expects us, our seniors, or our elders, they would expect us to have multidimensional thinking. So it should not be just thinking in one way, but we need to provide solution, whatever. So people expect us, or our elders would expect us, if we have any problem in our lives, we need to provide the solution also. We need to explore and then understand what problems we have and how we can provide solution to the situation. So that thinking should be multidimensional. And the last one is that they it is, though, like children, they see things in just black and white, but as an adolescence we have to relate things with every aspects of our lives. So we have to understand others' viewpoint also. We have to understand our viewpoint. We need to make them understand our viewpoint. And our argument should be there, but it should have a healthy conversation should be there. That's what it is expected. Then somebody has joined. Is it relatable, class? Did we all face this?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so here's this term egocentrism in adolescence, and it was again defined by Elkind in 1967. And then he mentions that adolescents' egocentrism includes a belief system carried by adolescents that makes them consider themselves as special and unique. This feeling is accompanied by the acquisition of many new psychological abilities. And egocentrism, we believe that others are imagining we have imaginary audience, and then we feel self-conscious. We're conscious all the time, regarding our parents, the way we talk, the way we walk, and all those stuff. So that's one thing you'll find in this unit. That's then next we already also do we remember the information processing approach, the short-term memory, working memory, long-term memory? Do you remember this? Class, come on, how can
Yes,
you
miss. Yes.
thing? So over here they've talked about the process on how we process information again. So so they've talked about the first of all, in an environment, we have the environment or the stimulus, then the sensory register, working memory, or short-term memory, and then we send it to long-term memory. So this process has, again, we have discussed in terms of memory, but still it can be used in different viewpoint also. So all this we are using the information processing approach. If you say how we're using in our day-to-day life or why we're studying in lifespan development, it has an impact. That is why we're studying. This is how we process information from time to time, right, over our lifespan. So we need to understand this approach. So that is why information processing approach is a very important model in intelligence, in memory, and now in lifespan. As you can see, the store model, the sensory register, short-term memory, long-term memory. Okay, then now there are four main beliefs on the information processing approach in terms of lifespan development. So when the individual perceives, encodes, represent, and store information from the environment in his mind or retrieves that information, he's thinking. So thinking also includes responding to any constraints or limitations of memory. So now you can relate how information processing approach helps perceive information, includes, and help us to. Okay, we have a baby in the class. Who is that? Yes, Charmin, you have raised a hand also.
Miss, when I was doing my readings as it relates to information processing, one of the things I found is that they compared the human mind to that of a computer. And in terms of the whole long term, short term memory and retrieval. They compared it to that of a computer. Oh, and my thought process immediately was the argument of nature versus nurture. Because if it is that we're comparing it to that of a computer, with the computer, the information that you retrieve is what you input. So I'm trying to understand, where do we get the genetic background? If it is that our mind works in similarity with the computer, then it therefore means it's basically what we input is what we could retrieve in terms of the environment.
Yes, in terms of environment, they're talking about. See, we'll see how they're talking. I mean, by in what perspective they've mentioned. So they've mentioned that when we perceive as an individual through our lifespan, when we perceive things or when we encode, or when there's certain information or that we have to store from the environment. So that is how we're using the information processing approach. So that's what I'm mentioning. Information processing approach. It has been explained in terms of memory also, in terms of memory. So it's a memory, how we remember, that's what they're explaining. And intelligence, how we use our intelligence. Attention, how we're putting attention to certain things. And then in our day-to-day life, how we think it. So that's what they've mentioned in different perspectives. That's what I'm talking about. So Charman, are you giving any statement or do you have a question? I exactly didn't get your question. Can you please repeat and be clear? Maybe my mic is not working properly. What?
Okay, so I'm basically asking as it relates to the nature versus nurture argument, because basically you're saying in this theory, it's saying it works like a computer. So therefore it with the computer, it's basically environmental based. What you input is what you can retrieve. Your past
Hmm.
experiences. So I'm asking,
Yes.
how does that tie into nurture in terms of genetics?
Oh, I don't remember such anything. Did you see from the notes?
I didn't, that's why I'm asking.
Okay, so I'll just want to say that if you're, are you asking that why this concept of information processing approach is referred in terms of nature versus nurture? Not in genetics, it won't
I'm
come under
asking.
genetics, but it is just under the nature in the concept of environment, not genetically. It doesn't have any evidence to that.
That's what I was asking. So it don't have any ties to the um to nature, but rather nurture.
Yes, it is related to environment, but not to genetics or some kind of thing. No, no. It's just about the nature, the environment.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
If I may add, I think that there would comment on the creativity of the brain to process, because while yes, there's limit to the input that you put in, we have this creative aspect of our mind that can process, whereby all of us would process one data differently.
Yes, Kumari. Do you have a question? Kumari, would you repeat your question again?
No, it wasn't a question. I was adding to Charmaine about she was asking if it's limited or memory is
No, no,
limited
it's
to what
not
you just
just limited
said.
to.
So I
Yeah,
was
it's not
adding that
limited.
there is a creative aspect of our processing that would allow all of us to process one thing differently, because that's a part of us. And with the nature nurture theory, remember there's no one, because everybody has a different view of it. It's a debate. So some people would use certain aspects of nature and certain aspects of nurture, while others would use a combination to explain how we process and how we think.
Okay, Kumari, thank you for that addition. Okay. So, yeah, so that's what we're talking about, thinking and metacognition. Then the proper focus of study is the role of change mechanism in development also. So when a child when a child's cognitive skills they develop, so they get indulged in encoding also. You remember now here we can talk about the creativity you're talking about. So encoding, strategic construction, automatization and generalization, or to solve the problems effectively also. When we get indulged as a child, when we used to get indulged in critical information, critical thinking also. So over here we can use the process of information processing approach, the concept of information processing approach. So we are here, we're using our brains and getting indulged in certain strategic development. Then development is driven by self-modification also. So like Piaget's theory of cognitive development, the information processing approach holds that children play an active role in their own development. So if we're able to retrieve things properly, if we store things properly, so we are using this process, why not? So through self-modification, the child uses knowledge and strategies she has acquired from earlier problems and solutions. So that it could be applied to the new solution. So yes, development is driven by self-modification also. Then investigators have also performed careful task analysis of the problems situation they present to children. So according to this view, not only the child's own level of development but the nature of the task itself constrains child performance. So experience, it depends. So the previously information they've encoded, and then if you're not, then if it's the previously encoded information is not helping them in the current difficult performance, then it would be difficult for the child to solve it. So they would want to acquire the basic skills to perform certain tasks. So this is how the information processing approach it focuses at the cognitive level. Then school performance and cognitive development. So if proper cognitive development doesn't take place, then the child could lead to they could have lack of motivation, they could have problems with their peers, poor work habits or study skills, emotional behavior problems, learning difficulties. We have talked about this a lot. ADHD, mental retardation, and other and other psychological and medical problems, not medical but psychological issues like anxiety and depression. So they've all talked about. So they have, in this unit you'll get to know how motivation and what are the different aspects that takes place at the school level. So cooperation among counselors, teachers, administrators, involvement of parents, programs and curricula fosters to foster students develop in multiple domains, and responsive counseling, then cultural awareness and sensitivity, advocacy for attention to the diverse needs of all the students. So this is what you'll find in unit 2. Then in unit 3, so here it is here we have one theory on Marcia's identity crisis. So even her work has been related to we have talked about identity from we have been talking about identity, the term identity, from Piaget's theory, from Erickson's theory, from Kohlberg's theory. So there everybody has talked about this concept of identity. So identity, now when it comes to an extensive explanation of what identity crisis is, and how other psychologists have also talked about this in a theoretical format. Then we'll see this. So definitely Erikson, he was the first person to coin the term identity crisis, and he has termed it as an epigenetic and social psychological theory in which an individual loses a sense of personal sameness and historical continuity. So he says that according to Erikson, an identity crisis is a time of intensive analysis and exploration of different ways of looking at oneself. And he has also provided detailed explanation on how the child gets indulged in intensive analysis and exploration at different areas of their lives, and it begin in childhood. Since childhood, it begins, right? He has given an 8 extensive stages on how we identify ourselves at different stages. So he described identity as a subjective sense as well as an observable quality of personal sameness and continuity, paired with some belief in the sameness and continuity of some shared world image. So, in keeping in view all the concept of Erikson's identity crisis, Marcia, even she has modeled out the concept of identity under 3 levels. So it involves a sexual orientation, it is a set of values and ideals, and a vocational direction. So that's what she has talked about. And then she also has talked about one's strength, weakness, and individual uniqueness when it comes to explaining the concept of identity crisis. So the self concept is the accumulation of knowledge about the self, such as beliefs. So when you want to read about self also, here we have a topic on self-concept. So having a positive self-concept, having a positive self-esteem, or having a positive self-image, it's a very important perspective of our lives when we grow up. So as a young kid, I think we need to be given that kind of confidence from our parents, from our caretakers, so that we develop a proper and a healthy and a positive self-image or self-esteem or self-concept. So there are certain psychological tools that has been developed to understand, to measure self-concept, whether it's positive or negative, to self-image or self-esteem. But it has been explained here, and you can also give more reading. And if you want to read this paper on self-concept, the ideal self and the real self, we have a paper by Marcus and Kitamas. If you want, I can type it here. So he has done an extensive research on this Marcus and Kitamas. Yeah, Kitayama, or how to pronounce. So he has talked about culture and the self. You can read this paper. It's a very extensive paper on an ideal self and real self, and how our emotion, cognition, our motivation, how it affects our self-concept, our real self and ideal self. Our real self is what we are, and ideal self is what we want to become. So that's what he has talked about. Then next is identity in adolescence. This topic again, so it is a continuation of Marcia's identity crisis. So here's a reading you can read. I'll take you to the explanation of identity, what this topic is. So James Marcia, the person like I mentioned, he explained about the sexual orientation and a set of values and ideals and vocational direction, and then he came to the. So he conducted interviews when he came to this theory. When he formulated this theory, he came to the conclusion that he conducted interviews with young people, and then he wanted to understand that what happens when we what we face identity crisis in our lives and how we manage our identity. So he has asked whether the participants, he asked all the participants about his studies, and there are certain questions around which the interview was revolving. So he had asked about if they had established a commitment to an occupation and ideology, or if they have experienced or were presently experiencing a decision-making period. So regarding decision and regarding their commitment to occupation and ideology. So based on these questions, based on the interview was revolving around these questions, and these were the themes upon which he has worked upon. And then he came to the 4 model. The first one is foreclosure, diffusion, moratorium, and achievement, the last one. So foreclosure, so these people, they make commitments, they've made commitments to an occupational future, but have not experienced an identity crisis. So they have conformed to the expectations of others concerning their future. So it would be an example where the child lets the parent decide the career. So whatever, like I mentioned, in some you might have seen, if the parents are doctors, so the child also has to become a doctor. So that is, they have not experienced any identity crisis, and that's the concept of foreclosure, that regarding their career. So because this interview was revolving around the concept of career and choosing a career and making a decision, so that's what the example would go for. Then diffusion. So the young person has not made a commitment and may or may not have experienced identity crisis. So he or she appears to have given to any attempt to make the commitments needed for developing a clear sense of identity. So in this stage, the child or the individual doesn't may or may have not experienced identity crisis, but they've not made any commitments also. So let's take the example of the child of a doctor parent. So the child doesn't want to become a doctor, or maybe they want to explore actually what do they want to become a doctor, or they want to explore some other careers. So that is diffusion. Then moratorium. So individuals in this are actively exploring alternative commitments, and so over here the child has this thing: I don't want to become a doctor, I would explore things, I would love to see some other career options. So that is moratorium. And so they're experiencing an identity crisis. They experience that they have this thing that, why should I become a doctor? If my parents are doctor, it doesn't mean that I have to become a doctor. I would explore more and become some I'll explore. So they're not sure what they want to become, but they want to really explore with this, and definitely they have this identity crisis. Over here, they might or they might not have. They would want to become a doctor, but still they want to keep some options to explore. Then achievement. So the individual has experienced an identity crisis and has made commitment necessary for building a sense of identity as described above. So in this sense, over here, in the achievement stage, the individual has experienced an identity crisis, and they would definitely want to achieve something else. And they have made necessary commitments that how they could build their sense of identity. So the core idea is that one's sense of identity is determined largely by the choices and commitments made regarding certain personal and social traits. The work done in this paradigm considers how much one has made certain choices and how much he or she displays a commitment to those choices. So, identity involves the adoption of a sexual orientation, a set of values and ideas, and a vocational direction. So, well developed identity gives a sense of one's strength, weakness, and individual uniqueness. A person with a less well developed identity is not able to define his or her personal strength and weakness, and does not have a well articulated sense of self. So, if there is identity crisis, now you'll be able to relate how uh, this topic is talking about, why they're talking on positive self concept, or self esteem, or self image. So, how you can make a connection between this. Then the next topic is social development. So social development again, in this concept, so self-concept, self-esteem, they have talked about, and I would really want you all to read this paper by Marcus and Kitamas, and then you can see this. Otherwise, when it comes to self-concept, these are the terms where we expect and then we want individuals to have positive self-concept or positive high self-esteem or positive self-image. Otherwise, it could lead to various other issues. And I mean, otherwise will not be able, like if in the identity topic also we have seen that they are not able to understand their strength and weakness, and they have a low sense of and they cannot articulate their sense of self. So this self-esteem, self-concept, if you look at the term, self-concept refers to a student's perception of competence and adequacy in academic and non-academic. So it could be the behavioral, social, athletic, are like do like we have self-concept, right, about certain things, are like positive or negative self-concept, right, and self-esteem, high or low, low and yeah, high and low self-esteem. So it's students' overall evaluation on himself, including feelings of general happiness and satisfaction. So all these are concept that has been given on how we can have positive self-concept and the concept of self-esteem as well. So now, what are the signs that could signs of negative self-concept that we could see in adolescence if we have a negative self? So doing poorly in school, having few friends, putting down oneself and others, rejecting compliments, teasing others, showing excessive amount of anger, being excessively jealous, appearing conceited, or hesitating to try new things. So these are some readings, and now because of that, having a low self-esteem, low self. Yeah, self-concept, negative self-concept, it could lead to low self-esteem also. So it could be so hereditary. I think they have mentioned about hereditary, but there are no studies. But yes, you can search if there are some studies that is contributing to low self-esteem, then that would be great. So if the parents are introvert and they never mingle with people, not that couldn't be hereditarily, but yes, it could be the observation from the parents. If they don't mingle, then the child would not also have certain kind of groups. Then the living condition, then lack of proper education, physiological conditions. If they're not well, the hormones, their mood swings, and societal implications, fear about future, disease, and other physical ailments. So all this could lead to low self-concept. And then egocentrism, we have talked about this earlier also. So here we come to the end of Unit 3. And now, what are the challenges and issues in adolescence? So definitely, we talked about the concept of low self-esteem, negative self-image, negative self-concept. Apart from that, we have other challenges. So it could be challenges related to drug abuse, substance abuse, all societal pressure, peer pressure. Then poverty in many of the countries. Poverty is one of the main reason where the adolescents are facing a lot of problem, even young kids. But for adolescents, it's a really difficult thing to do, to serve their lives. So that's one thing. And apart from that, we also have a level of interest, level of avoidance, insight. All these are some problems where the adolescents could face challenges. And then apart from this, we also have coping with loss of normalcy. So it could be, like I mentioned, poverty in our country also. Poverty is a very important aspect on how the individual's self is governed. So our self-esteem, our I mean, a child, when a child grows up in a country, it is very important that how, I mean, the money, the concept of money and the poverty, it affects the lives of an individual over here also. So it is, I'm sure it is for other countries also. I mean, it's universal for all the children across the countries. So that's what they're talking about. Then the caretakers, the parents, so they're not able to accept certain things. And then we have this cobbler's rose model also on anger, denial, depression, acceptance, and adaptation. So you can give a reading to this. All these are some readings on not much any theories that we have to describe. But issues, all it has been mentioned here. So irritable, sad, complaining, eating less, putting themselves down, all this could lead to low self-esteem. Then acknowledging sexuality. Again, sexuality is acknowledging it. It's a taboo in some of the countries. You know, child before marriage, and drug abuse, substance abuse. All these are some issues. High risk behavior, societal ideation. All these are some of the issues across the countries that you will see in young adolescents. Right. So you can give a reading to this, all these notes in MPC 1, MPC 2, block 3, and then we can have a discussion on this. Yeah.
Miss, they can that relate to, I notice here, the anger, denial, depression, acceptance, and adaptation is the 5 stages of Kubler-Ross death and dying.
Yes, it's for dying. Yeah. So when we lost somebody, so these stages, we go through these stages. So like for a kid, so they've mentioned in this perspective that if a kid has lost their family members, then how they, it's for everyone. It's applicable to all the stages, not just for children also. But yes, it's applicable to all the age group.
It's not really a question, but something I
like difficult to uh, wrap my head around that this hereditary would have some impact on self-esteem. I never, you know, thought about that, and I was trying to relate that to, is that related to nature or nurture? Because when I think hereditary, I'm thinking genetic, I'm thinking
No, no,
uh
not
innate.
genetic, not genetic. Yeah, that's what when I was reading, even I got this confusion. Then why it's genetic? Introvertness doesn't come genetically. It is something, when from the environment we are not provided certain kind of environment to get the exposure to the societal expectations, then it comes. It's not the genetic thing that if a parent is introvert, then we will also become introvert. I don't think so. There are certain studies, but it's the environment. They're talking about the environment. If a parent doesn't provide certain uh, um, exposure, then we can become introvert, not something which has come in the blood.
Yeah. And even the claim that poverty and some of these things can have an impact, um to me that's questionable, because I might be in an environment where, for me, it's not poverty. I have my hammock, I have my boat, and I'm quite comfortable. But somebody from the outside coming in, they say, "Oh, uh, that's poverty there, and that will affect their esteem." But poverty can even be cultural. But it's interesting reading this. It's interesting, and you know, the reading is causing me to think about things I never thought about before, and to think more, and to think deeply.
Yeah, it's a debatable question,
That?
Miss June, because yes,
Yeah.
it's a debatable question, Miss Julian, because but there are certain studies, we have studies, we have a study uh, by the living legend that has the psychologist in our country. They have done a study on poverty and how our self-esteem are, constructed, and there are certain real life examples and real life studies are done. So uh, I don't know, it's a debatable question in the sense that it does impact, poverty, but yes, again, it's our self belief or it's our willpower that even if we're living in poverty also, still we overcome it. But it does have an impact. Why not? We do have
Can I
studies on this.
can I add something to that?
Yes.
I mentioned one of my colleagues mentioned earlier about the poverty. One of the things in poverty is that there are four types of poverty. We have absolute poverty, relative poverty, generational poverty, and situational poverty. Right? And
Mhm.
sometime in life, we all live at a relative poverty, whereas someone always get more than what we would have. However, the absolute poverty, we will talk about not able to get potable water, education, health, and all these things. But sometime in life, we do go through some stage of poverty, a level of poverty. And there are types of
Yeah.
poverty, different types of poverty. When we talk about relative poverty, we mean that somebody able to get something more than us, and we go through that sometime in life. Generational poverty, we talked about where it passed down from one generation to the next. And we would give an example. You would find persons on the road begging, then you see the mother begging, then the daughter, then the children, and all them. That is generational poverty. When we talk about situational poverty, we talk about something happens like a crisis, but with the aid, we're able to bounce back. So we would call that situational poverty. With aid and help, we're able to bounce back into society. That's just
I agree with you absolutely, June. Uh, Especially when it comes to situational poverty. And then, of course, there are people who might choose poverty for a time. For example, the founders of Habitat for Humanity, they chose to give away all their millions and go to Africa to start to start an organization. It's not that they were generationally poor or anything like that, because despite the fact they gave away all their money, they had you know, to use a agency that they could draw upon. They had friends that would help them and so on. So it's very interesting. But anyway, the discussion is not poverty. So let me
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Yes, class. So you can read on these materials, and you can talk about, you can read those studies that has been conducted in real life settings and by some psychologist. So with regard to your own countries also, because I mean, every country has their own perspective on poverty, and but yes, there is a relationship between poverty, self-esteem. It could be positive or negative, but somebody who's, so like in our country, when we have IS officers, or they're it's a very prestigious job over here in India, and then so young kids who are rickshaw pullers or who are auto drivers, or children of they belong to below poverty line, and they don't have to eat, they don't have money also to eat for a meal, but still they become, after studying, and they qualify the examinations, and they become IS officers. So IS officers, it's a very prestigious jobs over here. So doctors, people become doctors, engineers, and so all this, it has a positive and negative impact. But yeah, there are certain psychological issues also. We cannot deny that. But yes, it has a relationship on that. That's what I can say. Right. So this is all about block three, and yes, I was texting Sir also regarding assignment. So you remember we have Professor Swati ma'am. She's the coordinator. I mean, she is the she has designed this course. So she has mentioned that she would be sending the assignments by Monday. Yes, that's what the information I got. So it would be uploaded on the LMS portal. That's what they have texted me. Okay, class.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You miss.
Meanwhile, you can give a reading to all the answers. I mean, to all the notes that you have, and you can have questions. So now I'll take questions if you have any.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. Any
Before we
questions?
move on,
Yeah.
yes, unit two. Um, I wanted to ask before we move on, but I didn't get a chance. So unit two, where information processing was discussed again. Um, I just want to clarify something. I'm not too sure on this. Right on page 23, if you can check it.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
You see that part, the first paragraph, it talks about, maybe it was discussed before, but I didn't get to read it properly. Talks about the terms equivocation, dissipation, and transformation in information processing.
On page number 22, just a second. Yeah, 22.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have page 23, where it talks about information processing perspective 2.41.
2.41. Okay.
That first
2.4.
paragraph,
Yes.
it talks about it makes reference to three concepts here: equivocation, dissipation, and transformation. Can you just explain that to me, please?
Yeah, just a second. 2.4.1, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And which paragraph?
That same first paragraph. Coming down to the end, it talks about latent and manifest information is defined through the terms of equivocation, dissipation, and transformation.
Equivocation. Why am I not able to find it? Just a second.
It will be line 5 of that paragraph.
Please give the page number of the PDF, not the
Page 23.
23. Okay, page 23, the second paragraph.
The first
The first paragraph.
Okay, so is this one, information processing is the change processing of information in any manner detectable by the observer. Is this the line?
This is the paragraph. When we read further down, we have three concepts.
Okay, yes. Okay, so yeah, so as such, it is a process which describes everything which happens, changes in the universe, from the falling of a rock, a change in position, to the printing of a text file from a digital computer system. In the latter case, an information processor is changing the form of presentation in that text file. Latent and manifest information is defined through the term of equivocation, remaining uncertainty. What value the sender has actually sent, dissipation, uncertainty of the sender, what the receiver have actually received, and transformation, saved effort of questioning, that is equation minus dissipation. Okay, so they're talking about, see, when we send an information right now, let's consider that you have this information, the PDF that you are sending, that the PDF we're talking about, that is on page number 23. So they're talking about the information that we have in our before our eyes. So equation, they're talking about the concept of equation is where if we have sent these notes, right, the PDF, it has been sent by IGNOU to you all for your readings. So equation is something, what value the sender has actually chosen. So what you want to read from this PDF, that is your choice, right? You want to read whatever information you want to read from this information that has been actually sent. This is the PDF, and what we understood from the information, that is the equation. Are you getting it? A very simple
Yes.
example, the PDF that has been sent from your university to study, that is the dissipation, and equation is what we want to understand and what we have chosen to read from this PDF. Can you understand this information, I mean this concept?
Yes, miss. Okay.
And the last one is this transformation, that whatever information, this information has sent a model, for example a theory has been explained, and we choose to read that theory, and then what transformation that could take place. So you remember we talked about critical evaluation and advantages and limitations of theories. Just an example again. So whatever we read, it doesn't mean that we will actually understand the way it has been explained. We will also understand how we want to I mean how the level of understanding, we'll also understand at different levels of understanding also, isn't it? So how we transform that information, right? So why they're talking about in this perspective, it's that because when we have certain information in our lives, we actually transform it in different in a different domains of our lives. So that's what they're talking about. Are you getting it, class?
Yes, miss. I understand. Did you explain dissipation? I understand the first one and the
Yeah,
last one.
dissipation. That is equation is the PDF. Again, let me just take this very simple example. The PDF that you're referring right now, dissipate equation, and dissipation is what you have actually received, what you get from this PDF, right? And transformation, after reading this PDF, how you have transformed that information. That is transformation. Definitely, you'll understand that.
Okay, yes, I understand. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, thanks. Thank you.
So in this line, they've also given this example that information processor is changing the form of presentation in that text file. So they've talked about, like they have given the examples of computer also. I am not a computer person. I'm not that tech savvy, but they have given this example that when we send information, sometimes, due to some, for example, have you seen if somebody has sent you a Word file, the word has been written in Times Roman 12 in English font, but sometimes it comes in HTML. Have you received that? Sometimes have you seen that information? Yes or no?
We never
No,
really pay
no, ma'am,
attention
I
to
haven't
that. I
seen
never
that.
really notice it.
Yes, miss, it
Yes, miss.
happens.
It happens, right? Sometimes it happens that
I don't know.
we received a mail. Yes. So I mean, they're giving an example with regard to digital computer system that when we send a Word document and sometimes we receive it in a HTML, it's not readable by normal individuals. And if you're not a computer person, you'll not be able to read that thing, that digital thing. But if it's written in, so it's because of the background information that has been changed. The text has been changed to HTML and not in the normal reading font. So that's what they're talking about, that when we process information, we have certain information. I mean, we do have, there are various information in our lives, but it is our choice. It is our level of understanding that how we process in those information. Are we processing the information in the same manner? Then it is known as dissipation, what actually we have received and we are understanding in the same manner. But if not, then we are transforming it. Okay, they're referring to digital computer system also. So for a very basic example, every student, I mean, everybody is attending this class right now, but the understanding of any topic would be different from one individual to another individual, isn't it?
Yeah, miss.
Yeah. So that's what they're referring to.
Yes, miss.
Okay. So please give a reading to all these notes, and you can. I mean, if you have started reading, then that would be helpful for your assignment also. So you can do that. So what do we do now? Anything you want to share, want to discuss?
I think somebody's speaking. Hmm.
No, class, I'm asking, is there any topic you want to discuss or talk about? Anything you want to share? Nalini, you want to say something? You're not audible.
I think she is asking, ma'am, if you will be setting the assignment, if you will be doing
No,
the
no, no.
assignment.
I will not be setting the assignment.
Okay.
It would be done by the university. Don't worry, they're very simple questions. They're very direct questions and application-based questions.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Um, in the last, I believe it's the last unit 4 of this block 3. Um, the challenges and issues in adolescent development. It has a portion that speaks about autism, and then it also speaks about some inappropriate sexual behavior that
Yes.
people would notice in adolescence. Um,
Hmm.
I've seen in a different country, not in Guyana, I've seen many adults um, with inappropriate sexual behavior in public, and I think that
at some time I would have read somewhere that this can be some mental illness, not just autism, but some other mental illness, like masturbating in public and stripping in public, and so. Can you shed some light on that? Is that true?
Yes, it is. Like, are you asking, is it true or not? That's what you're asking.
Yes, I'm asking if it's true. If it's mental illness that they might have, or is it just like just
Yeah.
being
So,
wicked or
yes, Sadhna, there are various studies where people have, talked about sexual inappropriateness behavior, and have displaying certain kind of sexual behaviors at public. It has certain studies, but yes, it could lead to some kind of mental illness or mental disorders. And see, it's not about mental disorders, but it's about abnormality. Every individual, you should definitely read a book by, what was the name? Uh, Okay, I cannot recall his name. Maybe I'll share that book tomorrow. This person, he's a very famous psychiatrist, and he has worked in the psychiatric department for many years. And then he talks about that every individual possesses this thing of abnormality, but there are certain rules and regulation, certain societal standards that has to be followed by each individual. And so, for example, yeah, so he has talked about that every individual, so not he, but even APA, they have mentioned that every individual has certain kind of abnormality, abnormality in us, in every individual. We have, even I could have certain kind of abnormality in me, but I have to fulfill the I have to fulfill the desires, and I have to live according to the societal norms and regulation. But in case if I go beyond the rules and regulation, beyond the societal standard, then I would be considered as abnormal. So every abnormality and abnormality, they go hand in hand. Everybody has it. So like cancer cells, it is present in everybody. It's present in everybody, but once it causes certain kind of issue, I mean, changes, if your cancer cells, they multiply, then the person can get affected, or they could get cancer. So the same thing is with abnormality also. Everybody has this kind of madness we say, or abnormality we say. We do have it, but if we cross it, there is a limit. There is this like, you might have seen certain psychological tools like mild, moderate, and severe. So if we fall under those domains, then we could display some signs of abnormality. So yes, it is a like showing certain sexual you know um, inappropriate behavior in the society, or in public places. It is one of the mental disorders, but it is also related to abnormality also. So you can
Miss,
find something to this.
would
And
you would you
yes.
agree that would you agree that every human being born with criminal tendencies?
Yes, why not? I don't have anything to agree with this, but psychologists have already agreed to this,
Yeah,
psychiatrists.
yeah.
So we are born with that. The dead instinct Freud has talked about. The animal instinct Freud has already talked about. So you'll read this in MPC 3. Yeah, MPC 3 personality. In personality, you'll be reading that. So APA, we have APA, DSM 1, 2, 3, 4, 4TR, and 5. So they have brought different, like internet addiction. It was not a disorder earlier, but now it's a disorder. Shopping addiction, it's not a disorder, but now it is a disorder. So if you're shopping, you don't have money, but still you're taking, lending money from others, borrowing money, and then you're still buying things. You're not able to understand that why should I buy things, even if it's not required, or maybe you're always greedy to buy certain things. So it's now it has been classified as certain illnesses. So if you have money, if you need it, if you buy it, so that comes under the domain of normalcy. But if you are lending money, and you know that you're not earning also, or whatever it is, and you're buying it, then that's not the concept of normalcy. It is abnormal behavior. So yes, from time to time, that is why APA takes. Again, I'm telling you, you guys also should read APA, the Diagnostical Statistical Manual. Um, that is DSM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4TR5. You should read this, because from time to time, APA has taken this initiative to come up with all to understand certain disorders and illnesses. The criteria, the changes that takes place from time to time, from culture to culture also. Yeah.
Based on a psychologist, we really got to keep up to date with the new
Yes.
thinking and new theories and new um, suggestions and studies because
Yes.
maybe what was considered, especially when it comes to sexuality, um, let's say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you didn't hear about sexuality, you didn't hear about fluid sexuality, right? You didn't hear about queer being on the spectrum of um, our sexuality, but now all those things are there. So um, the markers keep shifting, right?
Yes.
So
Yes. It is changing. Yes.
it's changing. So we really gotta be, you know, we gotta keep up. We gotta be lifelong learners.
Yes, 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 yes. Because even AP only they keep on doing certain kind of research and they publish researchers. They publish new studies and what is considered as normal, abnormal. All these are updated from time to time. So you have to follow that. Any other questions, students? So tomorrow will be the last class on my part. That is for MPC 1 and 2, intelligence. I mean, yeah, this cognitive psychology and lifespan development. If you have any questions, then you can write it and we can discuss tomorrow. And we have a very less topic on MPC 4 also. I can, if we want, we can see it right now. Do you want to continue with in MPC 4? It's adulthood and aging only again. So they have talked about the physical changes in the adulthood. So till now we have talked about adolescence. Now they're talking about the changes that takes place at adulthood, middle age, from 20 to 40 years, early adulthood, then 40 to 60, then 60 and plus. So all this they're talking about. Then the challenges that takes place at the cognitive level. Then the other issues, health issues. They're talking about the health issues. Then they have also talked about, and if you remember, we have already talked about Erickson's theory at the last stage from 20 to 65 years. It quite similar to this. All these changes are talking. They've talked about intelligence. Okay, they're very simple. Again, you can give a reading to this. I would love to discuss with you all on this. Then there is this concept of healthy aging. Healthy aging. So what has to be done? How to age successfully. All this concept are mentioned here. Anyways, I'll take this topic tomorrow only. If you want, we can have some questions, or else we can wind up if you want. Yes, sure, Abigail. I'll give my email ID.